The last couple of years I've been on a quest to find the perfect deal. Testing ideas, chasing perks and asking the big questions. Like, why would you buy these New Balance shoes? After countless attempts I finally got the answer, and that's how motion design brought my fake story to life. And our first app release brought us to 100,000 users in the first 24 hours and shockingly 300,000 users in the first 2 weeks.
Hello and welcome guys. Have you ever wondered how these UI Apple-like motion design animations are being made? You can see them in videos of international YouTubers like Ali Abdaal, Fern, or German YouTubers like Delft and Celtics. So today I'll be showing you how to create these animations going from Figma to After Effects. This tutorial will teach you all the basics you need to know to get started. Also, I'm going to share with you my favorite plugins as well as genre-typical tips and tricks like drop shadows, posterize time, noise, scripts and so on. So stay tuned and subscribe if you want to get started.
Alright, so there we are in Figma and I already prepared some screens as you can see right here. Make sure that everything you want to export to After Effects is in a frame with the fitting size already. Like here for example, this frame is like in full HD resolution, it has everything in there and that's like really nice. You can already have the typography right, like the sizes for the fonts and everything. And even work with images, although this one we don't need. I export the 3D mockup that you can see in the beginning. From an app called Rotato, which lets you like mock up these things very easily. It costs something though. And also speaking of costs, now to bring this over to After Effects, I'm using a plugin called Overlord. This is from like BattleX, a very nice team that creates great plugins for I think Illustrator, After Effects and many Adobe apps. And it's just, I paid for it and it lets you export your Figma frames, comps, whatever you want to call it, very easily into After Effects with editable text, editable layers and all of that. And usually that was such a hassle to do this, like you would need to recreate it in Photoshop or After Effects or whatnot. You can still do this and it's feasible, but with Overlord I literally just have to select one frame here, click on new AE comp from frame, then it will just create a composition for you in After Effects. Make sure that Overlord, the app, is on as well as After Effects. And now let's create a new comp and make sure frame 1 is selected. And now you can see it brought me right into After Effects. Everything is in here. Like we don't even need the image. And you can see, yeah, not even that mask. It doesn't fully export like a PNG into your project right here, but I think it's rather, maybe it does export, but it always gives you the, since there's transparency in it, it gives you a mask as well. And yeah, we don't need this, I just deleted them. And here you can see we now have editable text layers. We got our background frame that we don't even need probably. So yeah, that's basically the workflow going from Figma to After Effects. And if you want to update anything in here, change the color, change the text, change, I don't know, the basic composition, you can just change everything, press this button again, and it will push it to After Effects again. That's the basic workflow. And if you want to see a tutorial on how to create like mobile UIs, UI in general in Figma, make sure to drop a comment below. Okay, so next up we're going to create a grungy grid background that's very common for these UI mobile type of animations. And for that we're going to use this rectangle, or actually let's go right click and create a new solid, just call it grid, then drag it down to the bottom and then go to effects and presets and type in grid. So mine is bugged out here, just click it again and then you see under generate it has grid. Click in there and now make this grid black to actually see something, and also make sure to disable your rectangle here, otherwise you won't see anything of course. Then we are going to change the size from width or actually just the width slider. And let's also bring this one down so you can see it. There we go. And now let's make the grid a little bit bigger so it's easier on the eyes. And yeah, then we can bring down the transparency from down here a little bit. Make like this, then decrease the border width a little bit. I make it like 3 or something so it's very sharp and not that thick. Now we got it here sitting at 20%. Usually what's being done here is that they feather out the grid. Now you're thinking, yeah, I know this in After Effects. I can just go in here, go to the rectangle tool, make sure it's set to tool creates mask, then you drag something out, and then boom, nothing happens. Why is that the case? It's because the mask effect is not affecting the grid effect here itself. So the effect is always on top. So if you encounter something like this, just remind yourself that you need to right click, pre-compose, and throw that whole thing, like move all attributes into the new composition. So the effect is in the new composition, and call this one grid comp maybe. And you don't even need to open it. And now that one is in a composition. Now you can press Q again. Still make sure it's set to tool creates a mask. And now you can drag out something like this, just a basic rectangle. Click on the mask, press F to get the mask feather and feather this out a little bit. Now if you press Command Shift H, you can unhide the bounding box of that, or you can hide the bounding box and unhide the bounding box of the mask, and now it looks like this. Now that's a little bit boring, but we've basically created our grid. And actually in here, I'll increase it to 100 again, go back and then just decrease it in here. There we go. Next up, we are going to add a grunge texture to the grid here so that the lines appear and disappear a little bit, like kind of in a grungy way. And for this, just go to Google, search for grunge paper texture, something like this. And I'm just now going to import it. There we go. Here you can see my grunge texture. There we go. Now you can drag in this grunge texture, throw it over your grid, of course, then go here and toggle the switch and transfer controls menu. Go in one more time. Where is it? And then here under mode, you can go and just play around a little bit on what looks best actually. So if you go to overlay, this doesn't do that much. Okay, so I just checked out the other file that I've created, and to actually increase the distressedness of the grid in the background, go to our first grunge paper texture and throw in invert on there, so the colors are flipped again. And now make sure to increase the grid here a little bit to like 36 or something. Now you can really tell how this strengthens the effect. If this one here is too much, you can also just bring this one up. There we go. I just rather want these small dots in here to have it look like this. And yeah, now I'm really satisfied with the result. There we go. So we created the grungy grid. So next up is the counting of the numbers while keeping the prefix here, this little greater than sign, and also animating the text here. So for the numbers, I've prepared a little script that you can find in the description. Just make sure to copy it. All you need to do now, click on your number that you want to count up and go to effects again, type in slider control, drag it onto the number. And now you have a slider that you can just move up. And for example, the bottom one, right? We'll set this to 300,000, that one here. Now you open this one up, go to text, source text. And now we want to change the source text to be the slider value, right? So just paste in what I gave you in the description. And as you can see, it sets the prefix here. For us, it's the greater sign. If you want to have something else like a dollar sign, whatever, you can throw that one in. Then you can see it gets the number out of the slider control, which is here called number as well. So we need to rename this. Then it just runs a regular expression to clean up the string and put the prefix before it. And yeah, you can just leave it like this. Now you need to go to its slider control, rename, and call this one number. And now you can see that the source text is based on what the slider shows right now. Here you can see it. And make sure to now click on that little stopwatch here to create an animation. Press U while this is selected. U will give you all the currently animated properties of a layer. And you create a keyframe there, set it to 300,000, then here to 0, and boom, it counts up to 300K. And it keeps the greater than sign there, which is awesome. That's for the counting, very easy. Okay, so next up is the animating of the users in the first 24 hours. String right here, or text. Make sure to open it up. Then click on this little animate play button right here, go to tracking, then you get a range selector. Now open this one up, go to advanced as well, and here change it from based on characters to based on words. And now if you drag the offset, you can see how the little indicator here is jumping in between words. And that is exactly what we want. Oops, let's set this to 0 again. We got this now. Now make sure for this animator to click here and add a property for the position as well as the opacity. And last but not least, the blur property right here. Now what we need to do is, so these properties are now being animated based on the animator and the range selector, because you added it to the range selector, right? So now make sure to set keyframes for position, opacity and blur. So this is our final state where we want to have them, right? Drag them out a little bit. Then for the position, we only want to change the Y value. So drag it down, I don't know, like 20 pixels maybe. And for the opacity, we want to be at 0. And for the blur, we want to give like, I don't know, 10 pixel blur or something. And now you can see how they are being animated up like that, right? The thing is now they're all coming in at once, right? We don't want this, so make sure to click on offset and set a keyframe for 0 and then drag this in at 100. So now the range selector is moving word by word, animating them up each on their own, as you can see here. Really nice. Now that looks a bit boring, right? And now comes the first trick. So there are multiple plugins out there and you don't even need a plugin. You can just select the keyframes, click on here, go to the graph editor and make sure to adjust these on your own. Hold down Alt and drag out these little handles here to kind of smoothen out the animation, like easy ease it in or easy ease it out and all of that stuff. So what I usually use for these type of animations or in general is a tool that's called Motion. There are multiple other tools out there as well, but here you just need to select 2 keyframes and then you can go in and change the graph as I just showed you here, for example. And what this basically tells you is, if I move it here, you can see the animation is starting slowly and then going up quickly in the end. But what I want is a quick start and then a slow fade out. So you see something like this. And yeah, now you can just go in and change the keyframes a little bit for when the opacity should start, when this should start, because currently you can see you can kind of make out what's being written in here. So all you need to do is go into the opacity and change this one a little bit more, right? Something like this. So it's really up to you on how you want to do this. Yeah, and that would be it for the text animations. So now you got the counting up as well as the text going up like this, coming in from like a blurry state. And usually these animations work with a lot of blur. So yeah, that's how this is being done. And so everything is animated now. We got this here going. You just need to put it onto the one at the top. I also want to give you a little tip for for you not to replicate all of this for each of the single text layers in here. You can just go in here, select your, actually let me go out like this, select your animator, then go to animation and save animation preset. Then in the other text, you can just go to users in the first 24 hours, select the animation you saved as an FFX file, hit open, and now you can see how it applied it to the top one as well, which is really nice and saves you a lot of time. Okay, next up, we are going to right click, new adjustment layer. And now comes another cool trick for such animations. We are going to make it a little bit more gritty. And for this, we will go in and say turbulent displace. Now you can see this is way too much. So change the amount to like 2 and the size also to like 2. Now you can see how it adds this grittiness here. Let me toggle this. Maybe that wasn't even enough. There we go. Like if you increase the amount, you can see how it does add this grittiness, and make sure that it doesn't affect the text too much. Otherwise it will be too much for the eyes. And now you can see it's kind of static and boring, right? So make sure to click the stopwatch here under evolution, then press U on the adjustment layer and Alt click on the stopwatch here, so the scripting text box appears. Now you can just write the basic expression time, so it takes the current time of the comp, times like 500 or whatever you want. So basically that the value is enough to affect the evolution. And now you can see if you go along here, you can see how the number is slightly doing this jiggly dance there. This also adds a lot to the effect of this being something like very rough and written, and just adds more life to the whole animation. So this was our first effect and trick for these animations. Now let's create another adjustment layer. And here we are going to now add a little bit of noise first. There we go. Just a little bit, so that's way too much. So maybe like 4, also not colored noise, but black and white. We got this. And last but not least, another adjustment layer. And here we are going to add posterize time. Actually, now that I think about it, you can just throw everything in one adjustment layer, but I usually keep them like this so you can drop them in and out where you want them, or just copy it, throw it quickly to another composition. And yeah, but now you can see posterize time is added. What this does, it will bring down the frame rate you're currently having in your composition. So mine is set to 30 FPS, but that's too much. So here you can set it like to 10, and then you get this really cool looking style here. So if I hit play now, you can see how these kind of lag in a little bit. You could also just throw the posterize time onto the text layers to have it only there, but I like that this also is not counting up as fluently but jumping in bigger steps. Yeah, and that's it for the first frame. All the tips and tricks I've gave you. See you in another frame. So for the next frames, which consist of frame 2, 3 and 4, I'm going to give you the basics and the tools that you need to create this. But since this whole animation that you've seen in the beginning took me like 6 to 7 hours, I can't give you like a full rundown on everything because it would just simply take too much time. But with the tools, you literally only need to put in the work to get all of this done. Like, when should this animation start? Should I ease this out here a bit faster there? All of these little details can add up and consume quite a lot of time. But yeah, I hope with the tools and skills at hand, you can do whatever you want to achieve. So starting with frame 2, we got the same workflow again, selecting the frame, bringing it over to After Effects. Here we are in After Effects with the frame 2. So first, let's name our stuff here. This one is the green rect, right? That's the ready text. This is the check icon. Next up, we need to parent some things, because this check icon should always move with the green rectangle. We use this parent pick whip and parent it to the green rect. Right now, if I move this, everything moves. Speaking of everything moves, let's now create a shape that will hide our, or a mask that will hide our ready text here. Make sure nothing is selected, then press Q to get the rectangle tool and drag out a rectangle. So just like this at the left corner of this rect right here, right? Because it should move with it very closely. Now parent this shape layer to the green rect again. You can also call this one red rect or something, and then yeah, you will see if we animate it that it will move with it. So let's do this. Select the green rect, click P to get the position. Then that's our starting position, and then drag it to the right to where it makes sense, kind of like there. Then you can see the ready text is somehow above everything. So let's move it down a notch. Also make it black. That's also the cool thing about the Overlord workflow, right? Everything's editable. And yeah. So if I would remove the red rect now, you can see the ready text just stays there, but it should hide, right, when the slider drags over it. So we're going to use this red rect as an alpha mask now for our ready text. So make sure, if you don't see this no matte thing here, to click the toggle switches button. And then for the matte, make sure to select the red rect. Now make sure it's the alpha matte and it's inverted. Now you can see it's there. And boom, suddenly it disappears. So there's a bit of a glitching happening right here. You can see it shines through just a little. So go to the red rect and move it a few pixels to the right until it's gone. Just use your keyboard arrow keys. Yeah, that's it. Now, of course, always remember, as I showed you already, to use some nice to use a nice set of easing here. So you can see now, a bit slow, right? So yeah, just like this. Maybe also fade it out at the end a little bit more. Yeah, that looks cool. So this is basically is done, and you got the masking down now, which is a very essential part of all of these animations as well. And next up, we are going to create the little stock line going up right in the background. And for this, I'm just going to pick the pen tool here, make sure that it creates a yeah, actually not a fill. You can click on fill here, make sure to hit none. But we want to have a stroke, so let's make this like greenish stock, kind of green, maybe this, and just crank out the best stock line you can do. Don't drag your mouse, just click it, and once you're done you can press escape, or I usually press V and then escape or something. And there you got your line. Looks very bad on my end, so stock curve, I'd say. And this is pretty basic actually. You just need to open this one up, click on add, and then trim paths. Then you get this, and in here you now want to animate it, I think the start and the end. Let me see. So you go in here, and we want it that like this should be the outcome of the animation. And then if you drag down, oh, you don't even need to start, right? Yeah, you only need to animate the end. There we go. And now you got your cool little stock curve going up again. Add a bit of easing, maybe too fast, right? Yeah, way too fast actually. But something along the lines of this, and maybe you can make it start. Yeah, that's the part that I mentioned. I don't even want to fiddle around with this. It takes so much time to get all the speeds right and everything. That's the stuff that will take you the most time. But you now got the tool on how to do this, and you are good to go. So we already got the masks down, we got the trim paths down, and next up I'd say is the 3D cam stuff. So as you can see in the beginning of the animation here, like this just pops in, so the scale is animated. Then we zoom in like this. This is also just the scale going up. We zoom in, and then boom, suddenly these fly in, right? So this is a 3D camera animation. And what you need to do for this is right click, new camera, right? Then you can have your camera with default settings and hit yes. So now you're working in a 3D workspace. And what I basically did for this is take the position and animate the position of the camera once I was done with the animation. So kind of around here, we got our basic setup, and then you just like this is X, Y, and Z now, and we're just animating in on the Z level. Now if you do this, nothing happens, right? You're wondering why? Because you need to switch the modes again. All of your layers here are not 3D layers right now. So make sure to drag this one down, hold and drag. Now everything is 3D. So everything has a Z coordinate as well. And if you now zoom in, you can see how you're really zooming in. It's not the comp getting bigger or anything. You're zooming in and stuff is being hidden now, right? So here you go. Looks a bit stupid at this position though. Oops. Also make sure to give it some nice easing again. So way too fast. But this is usually how I work. And then it zooms in, and here I would now add like some blurriness. You can just go in here and enable like camera options, depth of field, for example, right? You can see how it blurs out. If you change the blur level up or the aperture down, was it the aperture? Where is it? You increase the blur level. Yeah, just play around a little bit with the camera settings. You will find this. And you can see if it zooms in, it kind of fades out as it gets closer to the camera. And then you just would need to select everything here, pre-comp it and reduce the opacity, for example, for it to fade away and for the other stuff that's behind it to come through. Exactly. And actually one more cool plugin I want to show you, as I'm seeing this here right now, is BOUNCr, which is free. So this is like, this can add overshoot, for example, to your animation. So let's see, what's part of the whole thing here right now. So the ready text, right? The green rectangle, which already has some stuff parented to it, and then the background rectangle here. Yeah, nothing else, right? So green rect and ready text, we can parent it to the rectangle here. And now for this one to work, we can actually, like to animate the bounce I want to show you, you can just give the scale an animation from 0 to 100. You can see it's very, very basic. Also, all the animations start way too early, so let me drag them out a little bit. Yeah, we're getting there. Now make sure to select your rectangle and go to BOUNCr, select scale, and then you can say overshoot, for example. Then hit bounce it. This will add an expression with some settings. And you see, now it kind of bounces in and out like this. And with the amplitude and frequency, you can play around a little bit and you get this. Like I don't like this. It was too bouncy, takes too long. So maybe the decay is too long. Maybe the amplitude, like how far should it bounce, is too much. Let me see. Yeah, maybe even frequency down to 1, decay down to 1. Also an interesting animation. Yeah, but exactly, that's how you would do it. And with this done, we can already start to bring in the third frame, I think it is, from Figma. So let me save this one, go back to Figma, and let's get into the third frame here. So I'm going to work in the same composition, so not creating a new one, just pushing this selection to AE. And here you see an interesting bug actually. So I need to restart this. Every time you're exporting images that aren't really images. So this was an emoji that I've used and I just right clicked and flattened it. So the images are now somewhere cached in Figma at some weird place, whatever. This doesn't really work. But if you would have dragged in an image just like this one or this shoe, then it would be possible for the plugin to gather the images and bring it into After Effects. But with these weird cached ones, it doesn't work, just as a little side note. So I'm going to delete these, just render them out and add them later on in After Effects, right? So plugins, Overlord. And now you see it just flawlessly worked, right? And now here comes the annoying part of all of this. We need to parent everything together again. So this icon should be parented to this checkbox should be parented to this outer box, text should be parented to the outer box, and this one as well as drag in the images. So I already showed you this stuff, I'm just going to do it now and fast forward. All right, so I parented everything to the respective layer. As you can see, if I drag this whole thing, everything moves with it now. I brought everything into the same comp. So you can see now that we have these layers here. I think the camera was the last thing we've added. So just drag this stuff to the right because it's not needed yet. Then you see we zoom in here. So right around there, usually this one should also like be animated and pop in scale, right? But in here, you kind of should then slowly see these things appearing, right? And what's missing now for them is the 3D check here. So we need to give them their position in 3D as well. There we go. Now you can see that, yeah, this makes no sense anymore. Like we zoomed in a lot, right? The other stuff here, for example, has to, like selecting everything, pressing T. Then right when we zoom in around here, we hide that stuff. So here we have opacity of 100. then drag it down for all of them, and now here they are gone. You can also, just to be very clear, bring down all of them to their respective 0 keyframe. So this stuff is gone already. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have done this for the very bottom layer, because this is our white background. So let me just go to layer, new solid, and call this one background, and add it to the very bottom, right? So this is still here. And then for all of these things, we can set the position to be somewhere where it's not that blurred out, right? So let me drag this out a little bit. Somewhere like here, so they retain their proper sizes. Nice. Now you can see, we zoom in, swoop in, this fades out, text should be gone, of course. Yeah, this doesn't work now because I also set our red rectangle to have an opacity, which of course then cancels out the mask effect that we've gave it. Where is it? Where is it? Red rect here. So make sure to go there where it's still 100%, remove the keyframe, and then you see it's gone already. All right. But as I said, the cleanup is all for you guys. So that's how you do the 3D cam transitions. Now what's a little bit bad is, right, I zoom in here and I had to adjust the position of, like, the Z position or Z position of these layers here. Preferably, you don't even need to do this, but animate the camera to where it moves to a state where these would be sharp again, right? Or you will play around with the blur level and everything, so you don't have to move everything around, because this 3D workspace can get very messy. But hey, this is graphic design. This is not something like programming or something where you have to be very specific about some things. You can just do so that it works, and you can always pre-comp stuff, move it away, do it like you can trick a lot, right? Just like you would do in VFX, for example, or game development, maybe as an example, as an analogy. So yeah, we got this here. And if you're wondering now, like, where is the text and everything that we've parented, right? I'm leaving this in because this can happen to everyone. So we parented this stuff to this rectangle, for example, right? And then I've selected everything and moved it in Z space. But these, of course, since they are parented, already moved in Z space because they are parented, right? So whenever you select something that's parented, only select the parent and move that one in Z space, for example. Otherwise, these things here shift. So for all of these, I would need to set the position to 0 now to appear again. Oops, only the latter one here. There we go. And that's how you fix such things, right? And now you can see we have our animation going on, swoop, swoosh, and then we are here. And let's now continue with animating this stuff. So for this little check mark here, it's just a trim path animation again, right? So let me go to the vector, for example, open that one up, add, and then where is it? Trim paths. Also, let me press Command-Shift-H to hide the little bounding box thing because it's in the way. And in here you can see, swoop, you can just animate it like this, right? So I'm going to leave it to you to do this because it's just the same as we did in the frame 1 tutorial already. Then next up, since we've got the Overlord workflow going on again, Overlord, we can actually work with like the shape layer properties and animate these, right? So first of all, let's get the basic animation down. So this one is the parent one. I can also call this one parent rect. And I want to animate its rotation. So, oops, not this one. Where is it? That is the X rotation. That is Y. And I want to do Z, right? But as you can see, it animates from the middle of the whole thing because the bounding box here, the anchor point, is in the middle. So what I do now is I'll move the anchor point to the bottom left corner by using motion here. So boom, just like this, drag it down to the bottom left. If you don't want to use this, you can also go in here, pan behind or anchor point tool, and you can just drag this thing. right? Now it's there. And if we now animate from there, you can see it moves from there. So that's also what I'm going to do now. And yeah, so here I'll go, this is our starting point. Then I'll animate the Z going down and then animating it up again. And now you can see it's kind of like the animation from the beginning. Whoops, started way too early, of course. Select everything, bring it to the right. So it kind of looks like a check, right? If you now smoothen stuff out again, it kind of looks like this check. Then you animate this one as well. And as I already mentioned, we are working with the shape layers, right? So what's really cool is you can just go into the parent rect now, contents, rectangle, go into the fill, and here you can even animate colors, and After Effects shows you the transition then very nicely. So right when we hit the bottom, it should turn into green, indicating that it kind of was like checked. Maybe pick a nice and smooth color. That's also all up to you, right? So yeah, I don't like this. It's way too strong, but getting the right color now is kind of hard. Then you can just copy this one and make it switch back to like white, and do the same for the little rectangle. Which one is it? Here. Because this should indicate that it's switched on now, right? So here again, in the beginning it's white, and then once it's checked, it's green, and we are good to go. Yeah, I don't like the colors at all right now. Oh, that is hard on the eyes. So maybe something still too hard. But yeah, now you can see the check mark, the checking effect, and boom, this one turns to green, right? So yeah, now you got the 3D cam animations done. We got the changing of the anchor point. I also animating shape layer properties, which is very nice. And with this, you basically have all the tools at hand to create such animations. And the last part actually, which is this bit here, like this conversation kind of, already just consists of stuff that you already learned, right? So the range selector for the text always, then a 3D cam animation again, as you can see here. And here I didn't even use the camera options to add blur. I just added, like I pre-comped this whole thing, made that one 3D. And these were just 2D, so it's a bit easier. And then blurred it out manually, right? I just added a Gaussian blur to the pre-comp and blurred this out. And this one is just a BOUNCr pop-up effect again. This is just a rotation animation, range selector, and just basic circles animating up and down, right? And then here just inverting the colors, also animated. So very easy. And the only thing that I added again is also just like in the first frame, turbulent displacement as a general adjustment layer over everything. That you've also seen in the frame 1. And yeah, the last remaining tip that I can give you is enabling this little button here, motion blur for all layers which have motion blur set, and then just going in like crazy, enabling motion blur for all of them, selecting them, then pressing once, and they're all set. Now what this gives us is slower render times, of course, but you can already see how it fades out here, right? Boom. This adds a whole nother level of smoothness to the animations, which I would always recommend. And if you now let this render through, you can see how crazy smooth it looks now, right? Oh, I really hate that this ready text is still there. Maybe I should just go in, and once we are here, I'll remove it or disable it. There we go. Let's let it render through. Yeah, there we go. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you could learn the basics and everything that you need to create these animations. If you have any suggestions, ideas, tips, whatever, write it into the comment section down below. I'd really appreciate every comment, like, and subscribe, because this will keep me going. And if you have more suggestions or questions for tutorials, just let me know. So I really hope you enjoyed this, guys. ArmaganVideos.